Welcome to Module 3D, Timeline Development, Dissemination, and Sustainment. This module will cover writing your timeline and work plan, showing how activities will continue after the grant ends, also known as sustainability, and letting others know about the project, also called dissemination. This module goes with the section of the proposal where you are asked to provide a specific timeline and work plan for contract work to be performed, including benchmarks and estimated completion dates for benchmarks and final products, as well as the section that asks you to describe how activities will continue after the grant is completed. Next comes your timeline and work plan. First, let's talk about what a timeline is. A timeline shows the funder when you do each of the things you say you will do in the project. And a work plan, your work plan lists the specific tasks you will complete and their benchmarks. Now let's look at tasks and benchmarks. A task is a small job that needs to be completed to further your project. The benchmark is the way that you know your task is completed. For example, if one of your project goals is to develop a training, your timeline would include when you will develop the materials and when you will do the trainings. One task may be to develop a toolkit for the people you are training. The benchmark for this would be the completion of the toolkit. Another task may be to create presentation slides for the training. The benchmark would be completion of the slides. When writing your timeline, it's important to think realistically about how long each task involved in your project will take. You will also need to think about your budget. How long will the grant financially support your activities? Having a set completion date for your final product is also important. Dividing your timeline into phases can help with organization. For example, you may have a preparation phase, an implementation phase, and a completion phase. In your application, you can provide a sample timeline with months or fiscal quarters that is based on the timing of the grant. This shows that you've mapped out the steps and know how far the grant will take you. The work plan should list all of the tasks that need to be completed for the project. These may be very specific, such as scouting locations, developing tools, or submitting reports. It should also include who will be doing the work, as well as what work you expect your collaborators to do. For each task, decide on an appropriate benchmark so that you know when the task is complete. Benchmarks will look very different across tasks. Be sure to include estimates for when benchmarks will be completed, as well as who will check that it is done. Your work plan should map onto your timeline so that tasks are in the order that they need to be completed. Next, you want to develop your actual timeline. Here's an example for our Pretend Fire Up program. This example may have less detail than your work plan. You can even say who is doing what. In this example, we talk about preparation, including the development of the marketing and recruitment plan, developing the Fire Up training, working with our collaborators to develop the program, and so on. Benchmarks tell you that the task has been completed, like the development of the training materials. In this table, there are 3 vertical columns, labeled from left to right as time, work plan activities, and benchmark. There are 3 horizontal rows underneath these headers. Let's look at the first row. Under time, it says Preparation, October through November 2020. Under work plan activities, it says Develop outreach/marketing plan to gather fire agency participation and draft training program materials for review by fire agency partners. Under benchmark, the first row says final outreach materials created and training program materials drafted. In the second row, under time, it says November through December 2020. Under work plan activities, it says partner review of materials and materials finalized based on feedback. Under benchmark, we have written draft materials reviewed and final training materials made and length of training confirmed. In the third row, under time, it says December 2020 through January 2021. Under work plan activities, it says conduct outreach to recruit participants, begin identifying potential dates and locations. Under benchmark, we have written participant enrollment, dates and locations established for training. Your timeline should include the whole grant period including the grant requirements. You can include information about your sustainment plan in the timeline as well to show that you have a clear plan for continuing the program after it ends. On this slide, we have an example table showing implementation and evaluation phases. There are 3 vertical columns, reading from left to right: time, work plan activities, and benchmark. There are 4 rows underneath these headers. In the first horizontal row, under time, we have written implementation, February through August 2021. Under work plan activities, it says ongoing outreach and recruitment, teach team to do trainings. Under benchmark, it says number of outreach meetings, number of staff trained to conduct fire up. In the second horizontal row, under time, we have written February 2021. Under work plan activities, it says conduct first training and evaluation. Under benchmark, it says first training completed and evaluations collected. In the third horizontal row, under time, we have written March through August 2021. Under work plan activities, it says conduct and evaluate 1 training per month, review evaluations. Under benchmark, it says number of trainings completed, number of evaluations, and evaluation scores. In the fourth and final horizontal row, under time, we have written September 2021. Under work plan activities, it says compile and analyze data and develop final report, including evaluation of satisfaction, efficacy, number of participants, and other outcomes. Under benchmark, it says final report completed within 30 days of project completion. After you write your outputs and outcomes, reviewers are interested in seeing that you have a plan for supporting your project after the grant ends. While this is not a requirement for the RFP, it really helps make your proposal stronger. Think about the grant as an investment. They want to see your project grow and flourish. This is called sustainability. So, for example, if you're developing a training, how are you going to support the people that you have trained afterwards? Do they have materials or a toolkit that they can use after the training to support them? Do they have a new way to teach new people? It's also important to consider how you will pay for these activities after the grant funding ends. Do you have relationships with collaborators or supporters who could help? Write your clear plans in the evaluation section. Remember that you will also be scored on your plans to share what you learn with other groups or people that can use the information. This is called dissemination. Proposal scores will include points for sharing your findings and program with others. Some things to think about are, will you train other groups to use the practice? Will you share your outcomes on your webpage or Facebook or Twitter? Will you share your findings during meetings with other programs? Be sure to be specific and provide details, such as the names of the meetings where you will be sharing your findings. The next module will discuss topics related to the budget.